Welcome to another episode of Behind the Bar podcast, brought to you by the coaches and clients of RT Fitness Durham, Sunderland, and of course the Barbell Club, where we take you from complete beginner to photo shoot ready. Now on today's episode, there is myself, my Sarah, and my awesome coach, Dan Breen. So today we live in a world where we're all wanting quick fixes, and with the rise of the weight loss injections, we just give our thoughts on it all. There's no bias towards anything in it. It is literally just our thoughts. Between us, we've got 35 years experience of coaching people, and we've coached absolutely thousands of people in that time. So it's just our thoughts on what the state of it is, and obviously if you are deciding to take them, what are the markers you should look out for, and of course how we can help as well along with that. So yeah, just watch it, take your own views and opinions from it, and yeah, enjoy the show, people. Right then, so let's do it. I had this little opener, what I literally just wrote upstairs from, if you're seeing us writing it there. So in our British lives, we live in a world where we have a machine brushing our teeth. We have artificial lights, which we stand in instead of being outside, some beds. We have walking pads in our house to get movement in to simulate walking. We lift weights because we aren't grafting like we used to. We can make a living and work from the comforts of our beds. We can have any food delivered and prepared right to our front door. We literally can have anything we desire brought to our house within 24 hours. We have porn within seconds to our phone to satisfy our urges. We can socialize through our phone and never have to see anyone in real life. We take supplements to balance out our diets. No wonder the UK is more overweight than ever. And now, in this spoiled environment, we are now taking drugs to stop us from over-consuming.
Is that where Ross mic dropped? I knew that was so predictable.
Sarah. Although Dan's ready for it. Go on then, Dan.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably the first thing is, like, the purpose of this isn't to just sit and bash Slim and Jabs. This really isn't the intention of what we're trying to do here. It's probably, I think, if anyone's going to take anything from watching this, it's if you are going to make the decision to use these, understand what it is you're using, why you are using it, the mechanism by which it works, and what you need to do in order to use it safely and to keep any results that you do actually achieve by doing this. Because ultimately, this isn't going to go anywhere. Like, these are here forever now. These are just going to become another tool that people use in conjunction with any other tool. But alone, they aren't going to solve everybody's problems. And I think it's important that people realize that, because I don't think I've heard a lot of people talking about this side of it. It tends to be either one way or the other. People are either massively for them or they're massively against. I don't think I've heard anyone in the middle sort of explaining, right, well, okay, if you're going to make the decision to use these, it's important that you realize that you need to do this, this, and this in order to avoid any negative effects from it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, first off, like between all of us three, we've got 30 odd plus years of experience working with clients, and everything in this is just our opinions alone. We are not doctors. We are not scientists. We can just give our judgment on what we see and what we hear and our takes on it. And our honest takes, really, I think.
The thing is, we aren't scientists and we aren't medical professionals, but we do have a good knowledge and understanding of what they are actually there to do and how they actually work. And obviously, we have an understanding of people and nutrition and the importance of muscle mass and all of the rest of it, which we will go into. But yeah.
in this
Yeah, I
big,
mean, I think it's probably an important line to draw before we start, is we probably aren't talking, when we're talking here, we're probably not referring to people who are sort of under medical supervision for a specific health problem where they're being administered the proper drugs for the proper reasons. That's between
Yeah.
them and the doctors, and we aren't going to try to overstep that line. This is very much going to be targeted at people who are going and choosing to take them off their own back as a way of making their fitness journey easier when they aren't necessarily the initial target audience for why this medication was created.
Yeah, I think one of the I think this is along the lines of where we're going, but just as a kind of opener from my end, I've just got Ben Carpenter's book. I don't know whether you've read it yet. Diets Don't Work, Habits Do.
I haven't read it, no.
You haven't read it. I mean, I'm not far into it, but obviously the whole idea is diets don't work, habits do, is the fact that we all know diets do work in terms of weight loss, just like these weight loss injections do work. But then I think it goes back to, unless you are changing the fundamental habits of your routine in your life, you will be one of these people that completely rebounds after the event. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think for anybody who's watching who doesn't necessarily realize the mechanism by which this medication works, it's essentially an appetite suppressant. And the reason that you lose weight when you take it is because it reduces your appetite. It makes you, a lot of people talk about having a sickly feeling. So they eat a lot less food, which pushes them into a quite a severe calorie deficit. Obviously, with the energy balance equation, you can only consume less energy or burn more energy. And the way this works in terms of helping people lose weight is by reducing their calorie intake. Again, it's to extreme amounts, which is where a lot of the problems arise, because any sort of extreme diet is naturally going to result in a large rebound afterwards. And obviously, I know you referred to before with the muscle mass. Obviously, the reason that yo-yo diets result in the person becoming more overweight when they cease doing them is because the super large calorie deficit causes them to lose a lot of weight fast. They lose a lot of muscle as well as fat. And then when they do revert back to their old habits, they gain the fat back, but they aren't doing anything to gain the muscle back, which means, yes, they end up constantly, every time they do a yo-yo diet, they end up in a worse and worse situation, which has always been the big problem with this sort of crash diet. And all the medication really does is facilitate crash dieting. It makes crash dieting easier.
Yeah.
So for the years of what we've done, just from that note there, so from the years of all like the Slimming World, the Weight Watchers, where they do lose muscle mass as they're continuing down and they gain the weight back, it's pretty much exactly the same thing, but accelerated.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, we're just getting to the same end goal, but quicker, which is probably more concerning.
Yeah.
And I think obviously an important caveat to mention here is people, this isn't us trying to protect our jobs. In the sense of everyone says that like, oh, this medication is going to make like personal trainers redundant. Like it's not. I think we can all say that if this worked and it worked in the way that people think it does or hope it does, it would be the fucking best thing that ever happened to our jobs, because the hardest aspect of coaching anyone is trying to get them to stay the calorie deficit.
Yeah.
If we could just have clients take a jab that could help them stay in a calorie deficit, and we could just concentrate on training them well and helping them do the other things, then I think we'd all be much happier just for that. So it certainly isn't the case that we're trying to bash something in the sense of don't do this, come to us instead. It's really not about that. Like I said, I think we all recognize that this is now going to be part of the health and fitness industry going forward, but it's about recognizing the risks involved and understanding what you should be doing if you are going to choose to do this, and also understanding that you can get the same effects with far less, I'd say, risk, especially if people are getting it from sort of backdoor dealers. And also without just the misery of feeling like shit all the time. I mean, the reason that most people can't sustain a super big calorie deficit is because it's fucking hard. Obviously, this makes it easier to sustain the lower calorie diets because you're not hungry, but hunger is only one side effect of crash dieting. Other side effects, obviously, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to have poor energy. If you're feeling sickly all the time, that's not a good way to feel. obviously food has a far deeper connection with us than just energy. And by not being able to enjoy food anymore, that's something that most people are going to miss. It really affects people's ability to drink. So obviously, if somebody likes alcohol a lot and then they can't do that, they can't socialize in the way they've been used to doing. Yes, that might not be a bad thing, but much like things like dry January, what happens come February, everybody drinks more than they would have anyway. So yeah, it's important to recognize that hunger isn't the only side effect of crash dieting, and there's a far bigger picture here.
I think the thing is, if you're not fueling your body, at the end of the day, like if you're not fueling your body well, we all know that we need a certain amount of calories as a baseline for our actual bodies to function. And when I say bodies to function, it's not me saying we need a certain amount of calories to stand up and walk about. I'm saying you need calories for your heart to pump the blood around your body, to be able to breathe, for your brain to operate, for your neurotransmitters to be firing, which regulates your mood, your hormones, everything. Like we need a certain amount, and these super crash diets, which inevitably these fat loss jabs is putting people into a super deficit. You're going to feel absolutely terrible, and things in your body aren't going to be working properly.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't.
Anyone I've spoke to who's either used them or is currently using them, nobody says they feel great.
Yeah.
And I think obviously every medication inevitably has side effects. There's no like miracle drugs. If you're going to take anything, there's always a B side. There's always going to be consequences to the benefits. And I think obviously when this drug was devised, it was initially for people who are chronically ill, and therefore any symptoms that people are going to experience, they probably aren't as bad as the alternative of continuing the way they were. And again, I think with like, for example, people who are the super obese, if you're literally obese to the point where you're almost bedridden, you can't get any activity in. So therefore, how can you ever create a calorie deficit without some form of medical intervention? Again, they're all special circumstances in which the positives would outweigh the negatives. Whereas for general population, I don't necessarily think that that's the case.
I think it's the general population that worries us, because we've all,
yeah.
I mean, I know we said we weren't going to go into the opinions and we're not bashing or anything like that, but I think just from looking at it, the people where the rewards outweigh the risks, like the people who are obscenely overweight, who physically can't get up and move, the bedridden, the immobile, 100% all for it, do it, take it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'd all agree with that.
But then there's the people who are maybe, I don't want to say slightly overweight, but like 4, 5
serial dieters
who are overweight. Maybe it's like between 2 and 6 stone overweight. They're still mobile, they're still out and about, still doing everything. They're just not kind of willing to change the habits to get the end results that they want.
I think people view it as an easy option, don't they?
Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like looking at people who've maybe only got a stone to lose, who we're talking about trying to get it, and they are getting it from backstreet people, and that's a massive worry, because it's like you've really not got that much to lose, and like you putting something into your body that's going to like massively just change things.
And I mean, that's beyond obviously talking about the side effects of the drug itself. Obviously, there's the risk of you don't know where this is coming from. You are administering it to yourself, not under medical instruction. There's no guarantee that you are using it as intended or that the product is as advertised. I think, to be honest, I think it's interesting in a sense of people's perception, because to me, it's very similar to steroids. In a sense, it's a tool. It's something that you're artificially putting into your body that helps exacerbate something that your body can already do. But most people are quite aware of the risks. And I think most people actually overstate the risks of steroids, but would not associate this as being a similar thing, where the risks involved are very, very similar, in the sense of if somebody just decided that they were going to start training, but rather than eating correctly or training correctly, they were just going to jab a load of gear into themselves, they aren't going to keep much of the progress they make. Because for anyone who doesn't know, if you do choose to take steroids, ideally you should be getting blood work done, and then when you're coming off, you should be taking certain things to cause your body to start working how it should have prior to you taking them. And most people who just start taking them don't do any of that. And because of that, they suffer terribly with side effects and they tend to just revert back to how they were previously. And again, this is very similar. So the advice that we are hoping to go on to sort of say today, or what recommend, I mean, the recommendation would be don't do it. But if you are going to do it, follow this advice to try to minimize that risk.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, we were talking the other day, and the whole like, because I'm basically saying it's the steroid for weight loss because
Yeah.
it is, and like, I mean, I don't take steroids. I've never wanted to, anything like that. But it's such a frowned upon industry. Like, it is literally like, oh, he's on steroids or something like that. Unless you're taking steroids, it doesn't bother you. But for all the people outside of that peripheral, which is a big portion of humanity, they frown upon
They
it.
always avoid
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's got really negative connotations if anyone talks about it. And the strange thing is, most of the people who are now taking these slimming jabs would also talk about it in that negative way.
Yeah.
100%.
And again, it's not that any of us are pro steroids, but I can recognize why some people would choose to take it. Not my bag, but you can understand it. Just like the slim jabs, I can understand why people do it. But if you're going to choose to do one of these things, it's important that you understand the side effects and you understand how to do it correctly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think just as a side note from this, we might talk about it more at the end because we do want to get on to the side effects and obviously how to negate them if you are going to choose to go that route. But I think it's going to completely change the bodybuilding arena because obviously steroids have been in that realm forever and people use them to look a certain way on stage. But one of the things that I've always said about especially females in prep, like I always say, I would love to look like that, but I haven't got the work ethic. The amount of prep that goes into them getting so lean. There's already talk around bodybuilders using the weight loss jabs in prep to make the prep easier. I think it's going to just totally change.
I'm not even sure how beneficial it would be in that capacity. In the sense of, because obviously you're trying to maintain your muscle mass and stuff, I don't actually know whether it would be like how beneficial it would actually be in terms of that final.
Yeah,
like how low, like would it not be to the point where if you were feeling sick, you wouldn't be able to sort of keep your protein levels as they were? Like, I don't actually know whether it would even, how much of it would end up being detrimental.
Yeah, well, I suppose we're going to find out at some point.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, someone's going to try it like anything. I mean, I said we were going to go into personal opinion, but I'm going to have to interject one. And it's the same with the steroids and the slimming jabs. Fair enough if you're going to take it, but if you lie about it, you're a fucking knobhead. Because by doing that, if you're pretending that you're doing something else and getting these results when actually you're using something artificial in order to achieve them, the fucking effect that has on other people who are putting the graft in's headspace is fucking horrible in your cunt. Anyway, a little bit of a opinion. I said I wouldn't do, but that's the only one.
It's gonna come out, Dan, don't worry. Yeah, so like that, I think that with the steroid versus like that, it from the outside looking, everybody like is sort of against steroids, but it's like this has now just become like it's common. It's like and even though it's only been out a very, very short space of time, it's so acceptable as though it's like probably because it's legal. You can get it legally, and I just went on a website the other day to see how easy it was, like just to get them. And so I put my BMI in. I am 77 kilos at the minute, 5'8". I'm classed as overweight at the minute still, which is mental. Because I am lean. Do you know what I mean? But it's still mental. Like I'm not carrying loads of muscle mass, but I could have just said on that form what my body weight was. I only had to answer a few questions. They were more expensive than others because it was a product place apparently. And then I think for each one it was like 120 quid for however many injections. And I totaled it up, like I think it was going to be like about £400 a month from this one place because it was like a legit type place. But I could have gotten them like within that week just by saying that I was a little bit more overweight. Yeah.
You can get them from anywhere.
I think as well, though, like,
sorry.
I think just like, especially amongst younger people, there's a massive sort of view on drugs in general, and sort of putting substances in your body has changed massively in recent years. I definitely think that the younger generation are far less opposed to the idea of drugs in general than previous generations. And I think that almost creates like an ignorance to it. Like, you go out on a Saturday night, coke's just fucking everywhere. Everyone's taking tannin injections. Everyone's putting dodgy filler into the body. Like, there's not as much of a concern about putting basically whatever shite you can into your body amongst, I think, just in general now.
Yeah, I think all throughout the years we've always had recreational drugs there, but now we've got aesthetic drugs in there. And like the aesthetic drugs were never around. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the recreational drugs have always been there. But you're right, like, I mean, imagine saying like, oh, I'm going to get me tannin injections, I'm going to get my lips filtered here, and then I'm going to do me weight loss injection.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I do think like it's just people just don't seem to be appalled by the idea of drugs in general anymore, whereas previous generations were, for whatever reason. But it was always there. It was always like, oh, drugs. Whereas now it doesn't have that sort of. It's as normal as going to the bar and buying a pint of lager. It's just, yes, it's a different type of drug, but it doesn't have that fear factor anymore, which again, it's concerning because people aren't necessarily then thinking, hold on, I'm buying this stuff from her down the road who I don't know, who also sells tannin jabs and fucking dodgy filler, and I'm going to be injected into my body. You don't know what it is or where it's come from.
Yeah.
Like, surely that should worry you. It would worry me.
It's crazy, really, how far we're willing to go for aesthetics. Like, if I was to go, I mean, I've made the decision, like, I don't want Botox, I don't want fillers. Like, it scares us, the idea of putting stuff in my lips. And I mean, he'd kill us in anywhere. But like,
fish lips.
all of this stuff's coming from like beauticians, and there was a massive thing when I was working within the dental industry about teeth whitening and how they were trying to basically put more things in place to actually keep the standards of what people were using correct, and basically saying you had to be a dental nurse to be able to administer teeth whitening, because every fucking Tom, Dick and Harry and every single beautician, back alley Sally, was doing teeth whitening, and it was actually just killing the enamel of people's teeth. And it took that long for them to put something in place, and now you should actually only get your teeth whitened legally from the dentist, a dental nurse, someone who's actually qualified to do it. And it's like, how long is it going to be before there's something put in place where beauticians can't actually just dish out weight loss injections?
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well. I mean, this is very much in its infancy, and there's already reports sort of every week. You'll see another report about someone having an adverse reaction. I've even seen people attributing deaths to it, etc. And it's like, this is, as it becomes more and more prevalent, which it is week by week by week, more and more people are taking this, then there's going to be more and more of these cases. And yeah, I mean, I think first things first, if you are going to go down the route of taking this, please make sure you get it from somewhere reputable, because you are seriously putting yourself at risk just buying stuff like this from anybody, anywhere.
Yeah.
People on Facebook I've seen.
Yeah.
Would you dare? Like, would you put something in your body that you bought off Facebook?
But people are that desperate. I think people are that, well, not, I've never wanted to use the word lazy on this, but that was like, I'll tell you what, actually, when it all came out, what was your first reactions?
I think it's been quite gradually. Obviously, when it first started, it was obviously Ozempic originally, and there was the benefits for obviously diabetics and that type of thing. And again, great, like, for it, I was totally for it, in the sense of like, it's another medical intervention, and these are probably the populations that put the largest strain on the health service because of obesity-related diseases. And if there's anything we can then do to start to ease that burden and to mitigate the risk, then happy days. Obviously, it does have a genuine clinical use. We aren't disputing that in any way, shape, or form. But then over time, like I said, you start to see more and more people popping up on Facebook selling it, more and more people taking it. And yeah, it is going to become an epidemic.
I mean, the stats, I tried to look at the stats for like worldwide usage of it. but the first stat would actually come up was about the industry in itself. So just last year, the whole weight loss drug industry, like the Ozempic, Mounjaro, all went up by 89%.
That's frightening.
That's like, imagine your company turnover going up 89%. Like,
Welcome to
Yeah.
the world of pharmaceuticals.
yeah, and it was, I think it like brought in like 23 billion or something last year.
Yeah, and that's
And
only going to continue to grow.
oh, that's small. It's like
it's going to be
why didn't I
obscene.
invest?
Like it's always been that thing. Everyone's always said if someone can ever come up with a weight loss thing, then it'll be one of the biggest things ever. But the thing to remember is when the pharmacy companies ever create anything that you can use, it's going to fix you, and then you can discontinue use. Like you can't just take these injections and then come off them, because as soon as you come off them, I promise you're going to put the weight back on. The only reason you're currently sustaining a calorie deficit is because that medication is stopping you being hungry. As soon as you come off, you're going to go, your appetite's going to come back. And because you've not put anything in place to change the way that you eat or the foods that you want to eat or the lifestyle that you live in, you are going to put the weight straight back on and some. And then do you want to know what you're going to do in 6 months' time? You're going to go back on it, and you're going to lose the weight again, and then you're going to come off it because either financially or you either can no longer afford the cost of it, or you can no longer deal with the side effects of it. But eventually you're going to come off it because you can't continue on some sort of medication like this forever. You just can't.
Well, they think you can, and that's what they're like. The couple of podcasts I've listened to was like, yeah, you've got to stay on them forever.
But do you think any of the people that we're sort of trying to talk to here view it like that? Because I don't think they do. Like they aren't watching these podcasts. They just think they're going to take that medication, they're going to drop the weight, they're going to stop it, and then they're going to be able to
Quick
keep the weight
fix.
loss, and that's not going to happen. They think it's a quick fix. And again, this is like what we're trying to address here. It's the misconceptions. We're not telling people don't use it, because people will use it regardless of what we say. It's trying to understand that unless you make the changes whilst you're on it, you're fucked, because you're going to have to either continue to take that medication forever, which you probably don't want to do, because again, the type of people that are taking it, they enjoy food. We all enjoy food. They want to be able to go out, they want to be able to socialize, they want to be able to drink, and being on this medication is going to make them miserable, and it's probably a financial burden that they can't afford to shoulder for the rest of their lives.
That fact, the cost of it though, it's supply and demand at the minute. I mean, what I listened to before, it's going to come down to the point like in the future where it's about £30 a month.
Yeah, but even if it is affordable, people aren't going to want to live with the side effects of it forever.
But unless they get used to it, unless they get used to those, like
Potentially.
me,
What kind of quality of life would you have then, though? Like, you don't like.
your taste goes right, like your taste goes actually down. Like you're not wanting to have as the enjoyable foods. You like that sensation starts to like go. It doesn't disappear, but it's like it starts to go like with it. It's like becomes less, like Dan said about drinking alcohol. Like the taste and want for that alcohol actually disappears with it along the lines.
But then, yes, fair enough. But then how far into this journey, if people do think, oh, I'll take it forever, and they'll get used to the side effects and they'll live with it? What about when they're unable to function fully? What about when they can't run around after the kids because they've taken it too far? They haven't been training, they haven't been getting the protein, and they haven't maintained any of the muscle mass. All the weight they've lost is from muscle as well as fat. All the weight. They've lost muscle as well as fat. And they keep on doing it, and they keep on doing it, and they keep on doing it. And then actually they can't physically do the things that they wanted to lose weight to do in the first place.
Yeah. I think this sort of gets to the crux of it now, because in order to mitigate the side effects and to maintain any sort of quality of life, you need to be doing resistance training alongside doing it. You need to be monitoring your protein intake. I'd argue you should be trying to maintain some level of sensible calorie intake, regardless of just eating as little as you can because you're not hungry. And if you're going to do those 4 things anyway, why the fuck did you need the jabs in the first place? Especially if you aren't massively overweight. Like, you're still, all the things you think you're avoiding having to do by taking the jabs, in order to succeed in the long term, you have to do anyway. So do you really need the fucking jabs?
This
Which
is
is the ultimate point. That's sort
this
of
is the
where we're
ultimate
going with
point. I
this.
think between all of us of what we like probably wanted to get to is like every single thing what every single thing what you need to do like is exactly the same like as what you would do on a normal diet. It's higher protein. Make sure you're getting some resistance training in there, making sure you're getting some movement in there, and obviously having like a nice balance within your life. Now, the big problem with these people is the protein levels. Now, you try telling people who have done crash diets all their life and whatever else, and now they're taking these things. Like, I mean, as we know, us three know how hard it is to get anybody to get a high protein diet in there. Now, these people who are going to be taking this, I mean, now like there is actually very high level coaches out there who are saying that they've got a GLP-1 plan like within their stuff, but it's exactly the same plan. It's saying eat your high protein.
It's exactly the same plan
it's
as they've always had. They've just stuck the GLP-1 on there to attract the attention of the people who are inevitably on the jobs.
Because it's true, but it's how can you possibly think that now these people who don't have much of an appetite, who don't have much taste, whatever else, do you really think their first option of food is going to be a fucking chicken breast?
I had this conversation with someone today. I've actually had this conversation with someone today who
And
is
also having the energy to train.
somebody.
Yeah. Because their option now is like, well, I don't have to train. It's just going to reduce my calories. I am going to lose weight. And it's
And it's like if you were going to take anything from this podcast, it's not a miracle cure. It's not going to solve all of your problems. And unless you do all of the things you're trying to avoid doing in the first place, you're going to put all of the weight that you're losing back on and some. If you don't do that and you continue use, you're going to continue to lose weight, continue to lose muscle mass, and you're going to be left being extremely, extremely frail. And then if you get yourself into that situation, you're still going to have to start lifting weights or doing something. But the problem is the general demographic of people that are taking this, in my experience, is probably middle-aged women.
Yeah.
By large, who are
Serial
approaching
dieters.
menopause anyway, which is the point. I mean, Sarah, I know you've been doing a lot of research on this. You can shed a little bit more light. This is the point in life where it is so, so important to be maintaining your muscle mass. And if you literally lose everything and you leave yourself extremely frail at this point in life, it's going to be very, very difficult to ever reverse that. And the effect that that's going to then have on your quality of life as you age is going to be really significant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just took a story picture. But yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's like, obviously, I haven't started my menopause qualification yet. I am very much still in the realms of the female coach and specialist qualifications, but a lot of what I'm actually currently reading about is perimenopausal, menopausal women and the importance of the muscle mass that they have at that point and basically maintaining it or better increasing it, and how they need to be doing resistance training, how people just see muscle as, oh, muscle makes you strong. And it's like, muscle does so much more than that. Muscle actually helps regulate your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Like it helps regulate your hormones. Obviously, women have a problem with osteoarthritis, osteoporosis. Having more muscle mass helps with that. And we go through this thing where our hormones absolutely crash and die a death when we go through the menopause. And we still seem quite reluctant to be actually focusing on the muscle mass as an organ rather than just muscle mass. Like, we need to see it as a primary priority, something we need to address and keep a hold of. So when these middle-aged, I mean, the people who I was talking to about taking it today are probably early 20s, which is even more scary. And the reason behind it was, I'm just lazy and I ate a load of shit, which is scary. Yeah, so if you're a young lass or middle-aged woman, you're going to hit the perimenopause or you're going through the perimenopause, you have to be really careful, because you don't want to lose the muscle mass you've got. Women find it harder to gain muscle mass than men anyway, don't we? So you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least take heed of some of what we're telling you about getting your protein in and resistance training 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah, like it's not even that we've got a dog in the fight type thing, in a sense of whether people choose to do this doesn't actually have a great bearing effect on us personally.
Mm-hmm.
But as coaches, we're trying to advise and help because we can see what's coming. We sort of understand the mechanisms of the body probably a little bit better than the average person does. And we're trying to stop you sort of sleepwalking into a bad situation further down the line. Because, like I said, it's not a miracle drug, it's a tool. Yes, there may be cases where it has its uses. And definitely, I think, long term, if you think of obviously people talk about people who are genetically overweight, it doesn't really work like that in a sense. But one of the things that does tend to contribute to people being lifetime obese is actually some people do have a large appetite. It's one of the very few genuine hormonal elements that do affect your weight. So there is the argument that long term for people in that situation, having something that allows them to maintain a calorie deficit a little bit easier could be beneficial, but you shouldn't just be eating as little as fucking possible. It should be a tool to help you maintain a sensible calorie deficit, not just to fucking starve yourself and to waste away into a fucking corpse.
Do you know the mad thing? Like, obviously, there was this whole thing before when we used to talk about, and this, people still say it now, is I've been on a diet for so long, I've been eating so little for so long, I think my body's gone into starvation mode.
That cheeky face.
But yet they'll still happily take this drug to put themselves in that position.
Yeah.
But then are they going to stay are they going
The
to
funny
say
thing is, though, they start
like,
taking the drug and put the body into starvation mode. None of them stop losing weight on the drug, though, do they?
No.
Well, exactly. That's the.
You know what I mean? It just shows it's fucking bollocks. But hey-ho.
Well, that's because people are shit at dieting, though, isn't it? They think they're eating a lot less than
Oh,
what
yeah,
they
of
are.
course. Which, again, it's a tool to assist that.
It is. Like,
whether it should be necessary or not is obviously the crux of it, but that probably goes on personal opinion, which we're trying to avoid.
I feel like if someone's at that point where they've maybe tipped the scale that little bit further than it being at a point where they can motivate themselves. Because you know how whenever we're setting weight loss goals, we say like, aim for 10 pounds, aim for 20 pounds, break it into bits, because then it doesn't feel like it's a mountain to climb. And I think from a mindset perspective, if you've got 3 or 4 stone to lose, you might well be able to G yourself up to address the habits that got you in that position to do the work, to lose the weight. Whereas if you've got like 7 stone to lose, it might just be that bit too much of a big task in your head for you to go, I'm going to get up and I'm going to change these habits and I'm going to do this to get the weight off. Yeah. So then do these like jabs come into play just to give someone that kickstart to get them on
as an accelerator. Again, I can totally recognise
to make the
validity
mountain
of the use.
Ominous.
Yeah, if you're someone who's massively overweight and you're going to take them, you're going to shed a shitload of weight, and then at the end of that, you're going to say, look, I know what I've done, I know why I've done it, but I'm now in a position where I really need to change my habits, change my diet, change my lifestyle, and start training so I can stave off the negative effects of coming off the medication. Perfect. Happy days. Again, this creates more coaching opportunities for us. Mm-hmm. It allows us to educate people, allows people to make people more functional in terms of getting them training, getting them moving. Fine. Again, I'm not massively either way on the issue. And yeah, it does have some valid uses, and I can totally see why somebody in that situation, if it's the option of doing this or going for, say, surgical interventions, which again are very common, then I can see why people would go down this route. But again, it's essential that you recognize that this is just the beginning. And if you are going to use it as a kickstart, you still need to do all of the things that we're trying to say anyway. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to, regardless of whether you decide to use this or whether you don't decide to use this, whether you need to use it or you don't. Eventually, you're going to have to start eating properly. You're going to have to start training properly, and you're going to have to address the underlying causes. and you can't ignore that.
Essentially, you're going to have to address the habits. We
Yeah,
always
and
end
it's
up
like,
talking about habits. You've got to look at your habitual
Yeah.
look at your habitual state and recognize and identify what the problem areas are, and then make it a habit that you do eat decent amount of protein, balanced energy training, resistance training primarily.
yeah, it's probably assessing your own situation as well. Sort of looking in, do you genuinely believe that you are so overweight that you require medical intervention in order to get the initial weight off because it's posing that much of a threat to your health? If the answer to that question is no, then you probably have no business touching this sort of medication. If the answer to that is yes, then yes, this medication is probably going to be useful for you. But once you've lost the initial weight, you're going to have to start making changes anyway. If the answer was no, then really you should just be starting to make these changes rather than going down the medical intervention route.
I would actually really like to have a conversation. So if anyone's actually listening to this, who has actually medically been provided with a weight loss drug, I want to know what advice is given to those people. I want to know if any advice is given to those people for
Longevity.
for longevity. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know if it's just another example of a GP sticking a plaster over a wound and sending people on the way, like antidepressants. That was an opinion drop. Or whether actually they're saying, like, this is where you start, but these are the things that you're going to have to address along the way. And this, from a longevity perspective, is where you need to be going with it.
There'd still be no aftercare, though. There'd still be no aftercare with all that. It's a sad state of everything. That is the thing, and then it's again. It's like it's so easy because we work in numbers. We work like, oh, this is your calories, this is your steps, blah blah blah, and it's so easy for saying, right, okay, once you drop your 40 pounds, right, you're going to come off these drugs and you're going to start resistance training and eating your protein levels. What is the actual fucking success rate of that going to look like?
Well, it's going to be minimal, but it's all we're trying to do is just highlight the consequences of, like, nobody watching this is going to go away. They're not buy slimming jabs off someone on Facebook, come home, stick them into themselves, lose all their weight, stop taking them, and just stay exactly how
Live
they want to
happily ever
look.
after.
This does not fucking happen. This isn't an option here, and this isn't us being dicks. But like, if that's the thought process in your head that you're going to take these jabs, you're going to suddenly look how you want to look, and then it's just happily ever after. It's fucking not. That is not an option in any way, shape, or form here. And yes, the failure rate is going to far outweigh the success rate, just as the same as it always has done for dieting, because it's not going to change anything realistically. It just accelerates it a little bit.
I think the thing is, a lot of people are so, what's the word? Like, warped in the headspace. I mean, even from a woman's perspective as well, like, women want to lose weight because they think if they get X number on the scale, they're going to be happy, they're going to live happily ever after, they're going to look exactly how they want. And that's half the time, like, someone who they've seen on Instagram or in a magazine. And it's like, you get to that weight on the scale without training, without getting your protein, and without eating well, you will not look anything like that person, because I can guarantee they're fucking weightlifting and they're getting the nutrition right.
Well, yeah,
And
that's
like, do you know what I mean? And obviously it's the kind of the same element.
like,
People
as
want to
brutal as
lose
it
weight.
sounds, like, if you keep taking this medication, the end result of how you're going to look is like a fucking smackhead.
But
Like,
jiggly.
whether you like it or not, it's true. Like, is that's essentially what those drugs do? They just, people stop eating entirely and then they just slowly waste away. So at some point, you have to start trying to live a healthy lifestyle, because that's not going to get you. You're going to be as miserable looking like that as you were when you were overweight, because nobody wants to look like either of those things. People want to look fit and healthy, and they want to feel good, and they want to be able to enjoy life. They don't just want, nobody wants to be an extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I seen somebody who was who's been taking them, and like, I know their nutritional background because of like I do. I know what their nutritional background is before. They couldn't eat fucking protein for shit, right? Not at all. Couldn't eat protein for shit. And now they're saying like, oh, look where I've lost like 4 stone, this, but these are the steps what you've got to do. Like you've got to still eat your fruit and veg, and you've got to eat your high protein diet and da 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 da. And I was thinking, you fucking couldn't eat a high protein diet not on these jabs. So if I was to fucking look at your nutrition now, I could guarantee it'll still be absolutely minimal. But you were seeing the things what people like what you need to promote it as, because I know they'll be selling them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know the industry they're in, and I know that they will be selling them behind it. So they've just put out this thing. This is the best thing ever. This is what you've got to do, though, and this is how much grams you've got to, milligrams or whatever you've got to take of it, and da 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 da. If you need any help, just give us a shout. And it's an underlying post for I'm fucking selling them. But I know that fucker wouldn't be eating protein whatsoever.
And truthfully, if they were eating the protein and they could maintain that protein intake, given everything we know about nutrition, they probably wouldn't need the jabs, because we all know the protein is probably the best appetite suppressant there is. If you eat a diet that's high in protein, you're full, which makes it far, far easier to maintain a calorie deficit. So it essentially does the same thing as the jabs do, just not in such an extreme way. So again, we'll come back in circles of all the things you're trying to avoid doing by taking this easy route. You still need to be doing anyway in order to avoid the negative connotations from it.
Yeah.
People aren't bothered about the negative connotations, or whether.
Not yet, until they get them.
I don't think they are until they get them.
But the thing is, it's like
that's
most people are just starting on their journey with this thing. We know how it ends. They're probably still in denial. And the thing is, in a year's time, in 2 years' time, they're going to be back, not at square one. They're going to be at fucking negative fucking 10, because they're going to be in a worse position than they were ever in. And even when they are, people's attitude towards them is going to have changed, because who's going to have any fucking sympathy for them? You've been told now.
Exactly. Also going to help build them back up.
Well, yeah, but it's like people are still regardless of what we say, no one's going to actually listen to this, and they won't up until they experience it themselves.
I think it's important that we keep trying to put the message out there, though, because it worries me. Obviously, there is an obesity epidemic, obesity crisis.
Highest ever at the moment.
Highest ever at the moment. And I mean, everyone's pointing fingers, like the food, like obviously it's not lazy Susan, and it's not this and it's not that. It's not that we're fucking a massively lazy population. It's just life has become so convenient, from being able to do everything that Ross said at the very, very start. Like you can order everything to your door. People aren't having to graft all day, every day. They're sitting on their arse of computers. Everyone wants highly palatable foods. They're designed that way. The high quality. They've got not high quality, the shit quality. The highly processed. The high calorie.
Delicious.
No, they are absolutely delicious. But like, obviously, there's this massive problem with obesity for several different reasons, because of where the direction humanity's gone into.
Western world.
The Western world, and obviously there is this huge thing on healthcare because of people who are overweight. And I mean, I suppose we probably see this more in our country because the NHS is paid for. Like America, you pay for your own health insurance. You're fucked. If you're obese and you've got all sorts wrong with you, you're paying for it. So we probably feel it more in this country because the taxpayer pays for it. But like in 30 years' time, is it not going to be an obesity crisis? It's going to be an elderly people crisis, where there's a lot of old people who can't do anything for themselves because they are
it's going to be a combination of both, because people think this is going to help cure obesity. It's going to make the problem worse. I guarantee you, sitting here, I promise you now, because all of the people that are taking this who eventually stop are going to put more weight on. They're going to be more obese, but then they're also going to be just as frail, if not more frail, into old age. It's going to exacerbate every problem we've currently got.
Yeah.
Not fix any of them.
But it's making people rich today, Dan.
Of course, it's making people rich.
That's the thing. It doesn't fucking matter.
Which is
It's
great
not
for the people who it's making rich.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's making people rich today, and people only fucking care about today. And it's the same with results. They only care about today. Yeah.
It's marginal because the people who talk to me about weight loss and they want to join a gym for weight loss, and then they end up on these weight loss jabs instead of joining the gym because the gym was too expensive. And you look at the prices of these jabs and you're like, fucking hell, like you're paying that. I mean, obviously the gym's, I suppose, more expensive in time, but
It's an
if it means
investment in
actually,
yourself.
if you're living life longer and healthier, it's the best investment you
I
can
think
make.
the problem with the finances involved in any of these sorts of things, like gyms or the slim jabs, however you want to look at it, people view it in a totally different way to how they view anything else. Like nobody would ever sit there and tally up how much they spend in the pub every week and then multiply it by the weeks in the year, then multiply it by the years that they've been drinking and sit there and go,
Yeah.
fucking hell, I've spent £100,000 on fucking alcohol. When people think of the gym like that, it's like you should be enjoying your training. It should be a part of your life that enriches it, and you don't view anything else in that way of it's costing us this much because who thinks like that? It's specifically people view gyms and that like that because they almost begrudge paying it. But why? It's perception.
Because it's hard work.
It's mind-boggling because people will do it and they'll say, well, how much does that work out to be per session? I mean, even with the barbell, if you price it per session, it's a cocktail, one cocktail.
Fucking coffee's £5, wait, £6 in fucking Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Fucking,
Don't forget the cake.
aye,
Don't
true.
get cake. Do you get cake from Starbucks?
Depends. Do if I'm not dying.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the
Yeah,
What's
we've probably
the
covered everything we can. I think it's just important that people realise we're not just sitting here trying to be dicks, trying to bash it because oh, it's great for us. We can fucking do everything we need to do. We can stay in shape, and we're going to try to begrudge you this wonderful opportunity to have what we've got, but without having to put the work in. It's not about that because that's not the reality. You're going to end up in a worse position than what you were when you started, and this is us being quite genuine
Mhm.
from a point of sort of concern and trying to help you. Like this isn't affecting us in any negative way. If anything, it's probably only going to contribute to our growth because more and more people are going to recognize the value of resistance training. So in terms of as a business, it's probably only going to help strengthen what we need to be doing. So we've got no reason to sort of to put these jabs down, and I don't think we have because we've highlighted genuine reasons why people would perhaps choose to go down this route, and that's fair enough. We're trying to help people. We really are trying to give you genuine advice because we know how this ends,
Mhm.
and it isn't a happily ever after.
Yeah.
what's your quick tidbit? Then
What do you mean, my quick tidbit?
I think that was Dan's like enrolling thing. So it's like you give yours.
I don't know, but all I can think of in my head is Jerry Springer now. After watching that documentary, like, what does he say at the end? Look after yourself and each other.
After he's let people beat each other up on the stage.
Yeah. I feel like
Fucking great TV though, isn't it?
Dan's just had one of them moments. I think it's just as with any kind of quick fix, try to change your mindset about it being a quick fix and actually think about the steps that you can put in place sooner rather than later. Like, don't wait till the horse is bolted and you're fucked, whether that's you're frail and delicate or you've put all the weight back on. Like, address your habits whilst you are actually doing it, if that's what you're going to do. Add some resistance training into your routine. Look at your nutrition, make sure you're getting your protein, and treat muscle mass like it's an organ in your body that you have to protect from everything else, because that is longevity. And that's what we're all realistically here for. As much as you might want to tell yourself that all you want really is to be this weight and you'll be happy, like no one really just wants to lose weight. People want to be happy. people want to be able to live the life, and they want to be able to live the life for longer, healthier, happier, doing everything that they want to do. So like, look at your habits early doors and just try and put these things in place that we're saying before bite you in the arse.
Sound.
What's yours?
Mine's pretty simple. If you, well, I think mine's just all encompassing me thoughts of it all. So it is like, if you're extremely overweight, then happy days. Like, I think there is a place for you to have it. Like, I mean, like really, like no other option left. You were thinking about getting surgery and all the rest of it. And if you've been advised to get surgery, then definitely that kind of thing is for you. And that's sort of all of it. All of these people in between who were thinking about taking it, if you can't fucking eat your protein now, you've got no chance.
Yeah, to put it on a negative there, didn't you?
No, but it's like you don't have any chance. It's just one of them things. It's like if you really think like if you can't even eat protein levels now, like because I think this is just my own personal main concern with it. That's it. Like of it all, if you can't eat your protein levels now, how do you think when something's going to be giving you an appetite suppressant that you're actually going to be wanting to aim for these high protein foods? Now, without that high protein within your diet, all you're going to do is just become a smaller and smaller version of yourself. You're not going to look in shape. You just like, if you picture yourself now, just like cut that in half and you'll just be like that little version of yourself. Like you're still going to look like frail and you're just not going to look healthy.
I actually said that earlier on. I said, like, if I was to go on it, when I was having the conversation with the lass earlier on, it's like, if I was to actually take that weight loss drug, I'd be like up shit creek without a paddle, because it's like the conversation on intuitive eating that I keep having with people. I don't naturally go for protein, don't have a taste for it. Dan, you know, I am absolutely diabolical for protein intake unless I'm tracking it and forcing myself to have it. It's not in my taste buds. I don't like it. I like crisps. I like pasta. I like cheese. Fuck protein. Like, no. But no, I know how important it is for me, for my goals. And I try to make sure I get my protein in. And I mean, if I was to take those and my appetite was basically telling me you can eat half the calories that you currently do, I'd definitely not prioritize protein.
I think it's interesting though, because would you say that you're someone who doesn't have a massive appetite? Would that be right in me saying that?
Yeah, I don't.
It's not greedy.
Yeah. So to be honest, you're probably an example of whereas you could probably get away day to day of just eating shit, but eating quite a small amount of shit.
Yeah.
Because you're not a massively hungry person.
Yeah.
But you, in order to look how you want to look, which is how a lot of women want to look, you have to then go out of your way to force yourself to eat more good food and to increase your protein intake. So it's almost an example of that's what people who are on the thing need to be doing. They need to be doing what you're doing. You could just course through and manage your appetite just by eating small amounts of shite, but you have to force yourself to eat the good things in order to look how you want to look, which is what we're trying to say people need to do when they are on these jabs.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Dan. Stay on the line though. I'll just right. Champion. Woo!